Hello, Tamar.
Hi,
Come in.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you. Come in.
Thanks.
This is the Libertine Hotel.
Uh-huh.
Unfortunately, it's not mine, but it's nice.
Yes.
It's nice that you came here because it's a nice place. So, what do you like to drink?
Some sparkling water, please.
Sparkling water.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Let's see if I'm not quite sure if they got stuff here. Huh. Because it's not my hotel, I'm not quite sure if they got anything here. So everything is deserted at these times. So,
Well, make
yeah,
it
I don't know,
half
maybe-
a cup of air. That's fine for me.
This is not, maybe.
Just the sparkling part without the water.
Ladies,
Oh, Gregor, he's
I got
got
the
the
drinks.
drinks. That's great.
Hi.
hello Tamar.
Hello, Gregor.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Melli?
Nice to be here.
That's good. So,
Well, look, I have some water here,
Great. Thank
and
you.
we have also some juice, cassis, and we have hollerbeere and some apple juice.
oh, great. I take
Amazing.
this. 'Cause
Yeah?
You take
Water?
one?
Yes?
Do you
You
like
want
to
a
have a glass?
Yes. Give her a glass.
Yeah.
Me too. I take the
I found
holler.
the glasses, but
That's good.
if I can reach. So this is for
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And look what I found here. So I put that on. So you have a little snack.
Some snacky snacks.
Yes.
But we will have a real snack later.
Right.
Yeah, made by cook Jörg.
Jörg.
Yeah, that's very
Well,
nice.
I'm looking forward.
You want to sit here?
Sure.
Yeah, it's prepared. You
Yeah.
can sit over there.
Great. Thanks.
Tamar Halperin. Does it mean something? You're from Israel. What does Halperin mean?
It doesn't have a meaning as far as I know, but it does come, it stems from Heilbronn.
Ah.
So very often Jewish names are after a city.
Mhm.
And although my grandparents are from other parts in Eastern Europe, not Germany, Poland and Russia and Ukraine, but the name Halperin comes originally from Heilbronn, so it has German origins.
Okay.
Really, Heilbronn.
Heilbronn,
I thought Hebron. Okay.
But and Tamar does it come from Tamara or is it?
Tamar is a biblical name.
Mhm.
As far as I know, there are 2 Tamars in the Old Testament, and both stories are quite heavy and not so nice, actually. One was the daughter-in-law of Judah, the son of Jacob, not the one from Jesus, much earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other Tamar was the daughter of King David.
Okay.
So, and there were some sad stories about both of them.
We have to deal with our names, yeah.
Yes, it also means date, the fruit, or it means a palm tree and a date, which is the fruit of the palm tree.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a nice name. It sounds beautiful.
you.
Tamar Halperin sounds
Yeah.
very nice, I think.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for coming to Frankfurt.
Thank you for having me. It's
You-
an excuse to get out of the house.
After a long time, I guess. I mean,
Since
Corona,
March. Yeah,
March, yeah.
precisely.
Yeah. So you were supposed to play somewhere around the world right now. Did you come to Asia, for instance? Already playing in Asia somewhere?
In the past,
Yes.
yes, several times.
Because I'm wondering, it's really difficult to be polite in a way of saying hello to people. We're used to giving the hand or hug somebody.
Right.
You know about Asia, you about Japan.
Yeah.
They have different ways of saying hello.
Yeah.
Can you already accept that we don't have to hug everybody now?
It's still difficult for me. I come from Israel. It's a warm country with very warm mentality and very physical, I would say, communication between people. So touching, hugging, slapping is all part of the exchange. And for me it's still strange not to hug and kiss the people that I meet. But at the same time, I think the Asian culture is very wise, and In terms of hygiene, I think in Japan, in South Korea, it's incredible how clean and proper everything is. So yeah, obviously we have something to learn from them.
Yeah, because they're used to wearing things on
masks, yeah,
masks and so on. They're really used to it. We're not at all. I mean, it's really strange and different. So we have to learn from them. Yeah, for sure.
The first time I put on a mask was just when the lockdown started. I went to the supermarket with a mask. I had the feeling I cannot hear anything and cannot see anything. So I was completely disoriented.
Sometimes when I go to the supermarket and I have my sunglasses on, and then I have to put my mask on too, I think this is so absolutely crazy because you can't see anything of my face anymore. So I have to think about, I have to put the sunglasses on my head so people can see anything, something on my face. So this is...
Yeah, I miss the smile. I miss the mouth to really see if somebody is open or not. So this is really different. Yeah.
It changed completely the energy when, I don't know, going to the supermarket and then you don't see the cashier, you don't see the other customers. It's just, there are people, I recognize male or female, and that's about it. Yeah, and
I think it's very difficult to see that, what the eyes do, because I did a picture once where I put the mask on and smiled underneath the mask, and one with a very straight face, and there was no difference. I couldn't see the difference in the eyes, So this is, I think this is something I don't like.
Yeah.
But fortunately, we don't need it here.
No, that's really a pleasure to see you smile.
Thank you. Likewise.
Tamar, you come from Israel. You've been growing up there. First of all, you wanted to become a tennis player, a professional tennis player, but finally you found music and came around the world. You've been studying as well in your country, in Tel Aviv, but on the other hand, you've been in New York, studying there too, and in Switzerland. So you've been around the world already while you were studying. What brought you from the sport to the music?
Well, I didn't go from sport to music. Both went parallel in my childhood. I had music all my life. There was a very old upright piano in my bedroom. I have one older brother and he was playing it, and I was often playing under the piano and just listening to him play. These are some of my earliest memories. So there was always music, and I always remember myself playing the piano. I started taking lessons when I was 6. But never with any particular ambition. So I loved music and I enjoyed playing, but it was never my plan to become a musician. My plan was to hold the plate of Wimbledon and bow to the Queen, which financially would have made more sense, you have to admit. However, I think when I was around 13, I already trained quite intensely with tennis. And at that age, the next level, to go to the next level would have meant to really drop everything else, high school, music, family, friends, and focus on tennis exclusively. So go to like a tennis internat and try to train. When I was 13 or 14, there was already Jennifer Capriati, who was 14 and beat Navratilova at the time. So it's an age where you have to be on top of your profession, otherwise it becomes amateur, or at least you cannot really make a living out of it. And I think for my personality, it would have been the wrong thing to go for competitive tennis. And also the idea to give up everything else. Not necessarily music was important to me, but not to the point that it is now. But I still liked playing music, seeing my friends, going to school, being with my family. I couldn't see myself giving everything up to just train 24 hours a day. So that was the decision. So I dropped tennis. And I think it was about a year later that, it happens with many teenagers, music became very, very, very important to me. It was how I connected with my friends, and I loved listening. I couldn't get enough listening to all kinds of music and try to play it myself on the piano. So that's more or less where it changed, that it became more important to me. And it's not until some years later that I actually decided to become professional in music.
And was it, sorry, was it always classical music or?
The training I received was always classical, but my interest was always everything. My older brother that I mentioned, Roni, after he played the piano, he took up guitar, and first classical, then electric guitar, and so through him, from his room, I had been exposed to all kinds of music, from flamenco to heavy metal, with progressive rock and roll and pop. So I got a lot of music from that room. Mm-hmm. My papa is not a musician, but he liked to listen to opera and jazz. So from the living room, there was opera and jazz. And my mama really loved the Beatles and Mahler. So whenever she drove me to tennis tournaments, in the car we would listen to Beatles and Mahler. So this is
Beatles
a little...
Beatles and Mahler, that's a very interesting mixture.
So I had the progressive rock and the rock and roll and the heavy metal from my brother's side, and the opera and the jazz and the Beatles and Mahler and my classical piano. And this in a way is my musical landscape. Yeah. And I think this probably explains why now, although I'm very much a classical pianist, I'm always looking to do something that looks into other genres, and I feel happy and comfortable when I can mix it. I feel literally at home when there's different sounds and different beats playing. Yeah.
Yeah, you've already been recording a lot of albums, and there's the possibility to see that you're open not only to playing classical music, but to mix things and to look at it in a wider musical way. Do you think that it has to do also with the fact that you've been able to study not only in your country, but also in the US and in Europe?
Yes, of course. I think in the first place because of the people I met. So everywhere I went, there were new encounters and new cultures, and being exposed to other musicians who do things completely differently, who are interested in other things. Mm-hmm. And on a different level, on a psychological level, I would say leaving Israel and going to other places in a way liberated me from the expectations I had growing up in front of my family and my teachers and the people who knew me as a child, and go and find who I am for myself without these judgmental eyes, not necessarily in a negative way, judgmental just because, you know, mama, papa, teachers, they want you to be a certain way. Mm-hmm. I think the distance and being on my own allowed me to really find my own voice and who I am, you know.
Did your parents want you to go away, or did they want you to stay in Israel?
They supported me. I was very, very close with my mother. She passed away quite a long time ago, but at the time we were very, very close, but I think she saw that this would be a good thing for me. So she was attached to me and I to her, but at the same time, she didn't keep me from going, and she helped me make it happen. Yeah. So
you've been studying several things. On one hand, you've been studying piano, mm-hmm. But later on you decided also to find the cembalo as a second instrument, which is like a really old instrument. And some people would think perhaps, well, why does a young lady or young girl thinks to study an old instrument? How did you come from the piano to find the cembalo on the second side?
So I always, since I remember, I always liked Bach particularly, and Baroque music, and also earlier music, Renaissance, and to some extent also medieval music that I heard sometimes on the radio and on occasional albums that I had. And I was interested, in fact, in the organ. Mm-hmm. I wanted to play the church organ, but growing up in Israel was not so, how should I say it?
There were no organs in the...
Not too many organs in Tel Aviv. Not so many churches. Yes. So I did take a few organ lessons, but at the time there was a big wave of immigration into Israel from the old Soviet Union. Mm-hmm. And there was a Russian man who played the organ like a god. He played so beautifully. But he had just arrived in Israel. His Hebrew was not very strong. I couldn't understand a word he was saying. So I would just listen to him play, and it sounded beautiful, but it didn't really work. So I gave up the organ lessons and stuck with the piano. And later, when I was studying in New York, the piano, I did my master's there. I took a class with a harpsichord teacher, Lionel Party, and I became so interested then in the harpsichord. That was I thought, that's another old sound from the Baroque. I was interested. I asked him if I could try it out, and I instantly liked it. And yeah, and then I took it as a cembalo.
It's the same.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you think this new instrument, I mean, you can play it if you're a piano player, you can play the cembalo or harpsichord, it's no problem. But do you think it influenced you in a way also in playing the piano afterwards?
Yes, for sure. So my first thought, actually taking cembalo lessons, I thought it's an instrument, many people think of it as an old model of the piano. That in fact is not true. It's just a different instrument. It has a completely different mechanism. So these are two separate evolutions of keyboard instruments. Right. But I thought the cembalo there's no possibility to make dynamic on it. You cannot play soft or loud just with your fingers as you would on the piano. And there's no possibility to sustain the sound. There's no sustain pedal. So in a way, most of your expressive means as a pianist are not possible simply on the cembalo. So my first thought, I thought, if I can learn to become expressive without dynamic and without sustain, then I can go back to the piano and have simply more tools. And to some extent, I think it's true, because one learns to work a lot with timing, which is a very expressive tool in harpsichord playing, and just listen to many other things that piano players are less aware of. On the other hand, it's so much a different instrument than the piano that it simply requires different technique. And just, if you want to be a good harpsichordist, you have to play the harpsichord. And if you want to be a good pianist, you have to play the piano. I always say it's a little bit like ping pong and tennis. So one racket sport, you can switch. Yes. But if you want to do both on a professional level, it's very hard, because it's very hard to go from ping pong championship to Wimbledon, different dimension. It's actually opposite techniques, and if you specialize in one, it makes you worse for the other on a high level. So
and the harpsichord is a little more special interest instrument, or
definitely. Most of the repertoire you play on the cembalo and the harpsichord is Baroque repertoire. Yeah. All the music of Bach was written for the harpsichord, so whenever we hear it on the piano, it's actually for harpsichord. And there's a huge repertoire. I mean, it's enormous. Most of the composers are less known today. It's not Beethoven, Mozart, but there are other Baroque masters. But it is mostly, I would say, 1600 to 1750 is the music.
But it's an instrument that brought you very far away from classical music. You've been working with a very well-known piano player from Germany, Michael Wolny, jazz piano player. And you've been doing 2 albums with him called Wunderkammer and Wunderkammer XXL, which was then a recording you did with him and the Frankfurt Radio Big Band, the HR Big Band together, where you played the harpsichord on a jazz state, right? Must have been very interesting to do that.
Oh, it was tremendous. It was great. And I dare say I would not have been the same musician I am today without this experience, because it opened my ears so much and extended my techniques and the possibilities of not necessarily what I can do, but what I think is possible to do with the cembalo and with keyboard instruments. So Michael Wolny is really, I think, a genius of music, and his idea initially was to create music for all keyboard instruments, and he planned it as a solo project for himself. But at some point he realized that he needed a few more hands to get all the keyboard instruments playing. And the other thing, he also realized that the harpsichord is its own special instrument with special technique, and it's not so easy to make it sound good when you come from the piano without some knowledge. And so through the producer of this album, Guy Sternberg, who is also a good friend of mine, I was asked to join and help a little bit with the harpsichord part. And then it just organically became more of a collaboration. And at the time I was very focused on Baroque music, but Michael's compositions were more, well, definitely contemporary, with a lot of minimalism, and yeah.
But it was not jazz.
It's in the
focused.
Jazz world,
Okay.
but it's like new music, so it's not like standard jazz from the 50s. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, not swing and not jazz standards. It's Michael's compositions. They're just new compositions with many different influences. You can hear Debussy's Scriabin, many different Messiaen, Philip Glass. So many different influences. And yeah, and we just started to create. I think the title or the topic of this would be sound, because we just press the different keyboards and each one has its own sound, and the combination we never heard before, how it works together. Piano and cembalo together, and celesta and harmonium and an organ and Rhodes and Wurlitzer all combined. And yeah, and we were like kids, just so happy with the different combinations. And yeah, and then I was asked to improvise, and I'd already had some experience improvising in Baroque style.
Yes.
And so the first time he said, well, this is the score, and here these bars are open, you just do something. And I said, what to do? But I took it like every other piece and project. I studied his Michael's harmonic language, rehearsed his figurations and motives and melodic shapes, and simply studied his style and taught myself to improvise in his style to some extent, so that when he says just do something, I do something.
Really nice.
Yeah,
so
was
it
great
opened
for me.
up your world of improvisation, coming from the Baroque improvisation to jazz improvisations.
Yeah.
That was 2010
Right.
and 2013. You won prizes with it as well. I mean, it won the prizes for best albums in Germany, I think. Looking for today, we're 10 years later.
Yeah.
You've been recording several albums on your own as a soloist. You've been working on Satie, for instance. But you've also worked with your husband, which is Andreas Scholl, a very known countertenor.
Yeah.
And there is another album which is very interesting. It's called the Family album, where you've been working with your family, coming from so different worlds. Germany, Andreas' world, and yours from Israel. 2018 was that. Very special thing to do, right?
Yes, very unusual in a way for me as well. The way it happened was that in 2015, Andreas and I had a baby girl, Alma, and both of us being musicians, Andreas is a singer, we just sang to the baby all the time in Hebrew, which is my mother language, in German, and some English songs. And where we live, we have our own recording studio, and I told Andreas, let's record these songs for her so that when she's a bit older, she can go back and have something to look.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and that would have been very simple. We have the piano, we have a microphone, he sings, I play, and that would have been it. But Andreas then said, why won't we just invite the rest of the family to do this with us?
Yes.
Andreas comes from a musical family. His parents both are not professional musicians, but both play instruments, and were very involved in the village choir and the musical life of the village in Kiedrich. Andreas' brother and sister both sing. His sister is a professional singer. She teaches in Mainz. And in my family, nobody is a professional musician, but everybody plays and sings. So my brother plays guitar very well. His 5 kids all play instruments and sing very willingly. My cousins all play and sing. So whenever we are in Israel getting together, when I come to visit, we have dinner and then we just start jamming. There's a piano and then somebody starts playing and somebody joins and then we start playing. And this can go on and the styles just go like this. Whatever anybody wants to play in the moment becomes the jam. So we tried to recreate this feeling And the songs we chose were some lullabies in German, in Hebrew, in English, some children's songs, but also some songs that just the family enjoys playing together. I had made the arrangements for the setup, whatever was available. We had, I think we were in total 30 people with 10 children under the age of 10.
Wow.
And so
And how many instruments?
So piano and harpsichord. I was not the only one playing the keyboards. Guitars, oud, bass, percussion, flute, mandolin from Oma, and many voices.
Very nice.
Many voices, yeah. And also together with Gage, my friend who produced Wunderkammer.
Yes.
He produced this album. He came with his wife and child. So the idea was just to spend time together. The recording was almost secondary. Everybody came for 1 week in Kiedrich, and it was very warm. The kids were playing in the courtyard, the adults eating, talking, riding the bicycle, going into the studio, trying out, doing 100 takes of a simple song because we're not professional musicians, so we had to do it. But it was not important. What was fun is just to be together and, to see the families and how the children connect and how even with the different backgrounds and languages, there's such warm feeling. So that was the family songbook.
But this seems to me that this is quite important for you, the mix between being very professional as a musician, but also to have a family life and so on. You have a child. She's 4 now, I think, and I mean we have a very special time right now. Everybody is at home and so on. But normally you are a lot away, working all over the world, like your husband as well. So this is a very special point to record an album like that with a family. Makes it a very personal project, and you can hear it when you listen to it. It's really beautiful to see.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, actually, what is the point? And this is something I've been asking myself, I think, forever, playing classical music, because it's not an obvious thing to do. Growing up, let's say, end of the 20th century, beginning of the 21st, to find yourself spending so many hours working on music that was written 300 years ago, I always ask myself, what's the point? And, now sometimes I get paid to do it, so I can say that's the point, but for many years I wasn't, and there has to be a good excuse to do it. And so the justification for me is that if this is a tool of communication, if this is a way to get closer with people and bring people together, piano particularly is a very solitary instrument. So in order to get good at it, you stay hours and hours on your own. Other instruments, you can play orchestra and chamber music more easily. With the piano, you're alone in your room. So was it a kind of lack of friends when you were, I don't know, around 18 or whatever? Yes, I wouldn't say lack of friends, but more solitary than the average 18-year-old, I would say, yeah. So
the Corona time right now must have been a real pleasure for you then. You were supposed to play all the day.
I play all day. I do, actually, yeah. Of course, I'm aware and astounded and worried about what's going on in the world. But for me personally, this is a great time to be home and practice and do my thing. So I'm really used to this.
And have time for being with your children too?
Of course, yeah. Yeah, it's a great time for the family. For my daughter, it's the first time in her 4 years that Mama and Papa are home and not going anywhere. She doesn't have to separate from one or the other. And she doesn't have to pack her little suitcase. We're just home and we have meals every day together. It never happened since she's born, and so I think, and it reflects in her behavior. She's calmer and more confident, and this reflects in turn on us, that we are calmer and happier, and so normally when you go on a tour, you take her with you? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. She's always with you, or she goes on tour. Okay. She's a baby on tour, yeah.
She knows how it works.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she's been to many concerts since she's about 2 years old. She attends the she asked, and I told her, you can come to the concert, but you have to be silent. So she's silent. In all the concerts she's heard since, in 2.5 years, there are quite many. There was just one time that there was trouble. Okay. She was probably just almost 3 years old, and the music was so great that she wanted to get up and dance. And I said, okay. But then she insisted that I dance with her. It was Papa's concert. Andreas was singing. And she wanted me to dance with her, and I said, I can't. And then she was upset and made a little bit of fuss, and we had to leave. And that was the only time that there was trouble in concert. Otherwise, she sits there, and she remembers the music, and she's a great girl.
I remember my brother once, because my mother was a pianist too, he went underneath, she had a long skirt and on a concert. Yeah. And we were there, my brother and me, and he was about, 3 years old, and he went underneath the long skirt during my mother's, we were playing, yeah. I remember that. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. That's great.
That's good. My son also did that once. I remember him, there was a stage where there was enough space to go underneath, just directly behind the bass amp. So he was sitting there while the concert was taking place, and never said anything. It was really fun. Yeah. Tamar, we talk about your child, and you are from Israel. Your husband is German. My mother is French. My father is German. So I remember that this mixture of two different countries has come in me. I mean, I know how it feels like to grow up like a French or a German. How do you feel you are influencing your daughter, bringing her the culture of your country here in Germany?
To begin with, I would like to say that I'm very happy that my daughter grows up here in Germany, in Kiedrich. It's a beautiful place, I think, for a child. Mm-hmm. There's beautiful nature everywhere, and the people are very friendly, and the rhythm, even before Corona, the pace is very slow, so it's a nice place to grow up.
Maybe this changes when she's a teenager.
For me, arriving there, I moved there before Alma was born to be together with Andreas, and for me at the beginning was not easy. Mm-hmm. So I lacked my busy life, but now with a child, it's very nice. Yeah. And I think there's so many wonderful things about German culture that I'm very pleased that she takes and that will be part of her. What I hope to give her from the Israeli culture, mostly I would say, is the warmth and directness and personal, like being very personal with people. In Israel, in Hebrew, there is no distinction between sie and du. Mm-hmm. Everything is du. There is you would never address your teacher as professor or Herr somebody. It's always just, hey Johnny. So everybody is close like this, and I think there's something very beautiful about that, particularly if you're also aware of respect and being respectful and etc. So
you speak in Hebrew with your daughter, right?
I speak only Hebrew. She speaks back to me in Hebrew.
And when she turns to your husband,
she speaks German with Papa.
Yeah.
At home we speak English, so she speaks English too.
Okay.
Wow.
And she has a Spanish nanny, so she speaks Spanish as well.
Wow.
Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what is the Israeli side you can give to her living here in Germany?
Well, we are not, I'm careful with generalizations, but I think compared to my husband's family, we are less worried about getting dirty or messy, so she can play in the mud as much as she wants. I'm a lot less concerned about what other people think of me or of her, so she can really just be silly, and that's fine for me. Being outdoors a lot, I think growing up in Israel, I think that probably 5 or 10 rainy days a year, and the rest of the time you're outdoors all the time. It's warm and dry, and that's where the children are out playing. So I hope she has some of this freedom and this ease, just being outside in the world with people, and less strict and less confined. Yeah.
I want to come back to the music, of course, and we will have the chance. I will have the chance to perform some music with you. There is a studio down here which is called Lotte Lindenberg. Very nice recording studio. They have concerts, of course, not at the moment, but normally they have small concerts there.
Down there?
Down there, yeah,
okay.
In the recording room. You have to deal with playing on a piano, which is a very simple instrument. But this is normal life for a piano player. Everywhere you go, you find an instrument and you have to get used to it. Of course, if you go to beautiful concert halls, you might have a beautiful instrument. But how do you deal? I wonder, how do you deal with playing with so many different instruments?
Well, it takes flexibility. I have to adapt. I like to spend as much time as possible on the piano that I will end up performing on, because I feel that the kind of sound and things I can get out of the piano depend on my acquaintance with a specific instrument and with the room. So for example, before any concert, no matter where, I try to get some hours where I just first listen to the room and then try out the keyboard, and then I make little mental notes of the things that I lack or the things that the strengths and weaknesses of the instrument. And then I just try things out. I try to get the sound that I'm looking for. And I have to use my hands differently with every piano. Some rooms, some pianos won't allow very fast tempi, for example, because it gets muddy and not clear, so I change my tempo. Sometimes the pianos are very bright, then I play more lightly, or they're very dead, then I have to find a way to make... So I adapt, I listen and I react to the instrument.
The most beautiful instrument that you've been played ever on, can you name it?
Yes, Andreas and I were giving a recital in Atlanta, Georgia, in a place called Spivey Hall. And it's, generally it's not New York City or London or Paris where there, just a traffic of concert pianists. Nevertheless, a woman gave her fortune for this purpose specifically to create the best sounding concert hall and find the best sounding piano for this specific concert hall. So for 2 years, I think, they were on the search for a piano that would fit this perfectly. Not just any Steinway D, but a specific Steinway that was built with this in mind for the size and the parameters of the hall. And coming onto stage, I was nervous. You never know what's going on, and it was the first concert in a tour. And the second I put my hands on the piano, it was like all I needed to do was just imagine the sound, and it came out. There was no effort from me. The whole was so beautiful, and the piano was just so balanced, like, it's a dream. It was like taking a bubble bath of sound. It was so great. Yeah.
So this happens once in a lifetime, kind of.
It happens, I would say, once every 2-3 years because it's not just the great piano. No. It's the piano in the hall. Sometimes there's a great hall, and the piano is great, but it's not well maintained, and one note, is a bit too loud. So there's always something, but to find something that is just poof, no worries. I imagine the music, and then I just hear it how I want it, and I don't have to worry, and this is great.
So unfortunately, we cannot go to Georgia right now, but we can move to the cellar and play some music together. Yeah.
And I go upstairs to see what the cook is doing over there, and then at the end we eat together, okay? I checked this. The chef.
Come on.
Ach, hier ist das, oder wie? Jetzt will ich mal wissen, wo hier jetzt was gekocht wird. Ich bin jetzt mal gespannt. Ist es hier drin? Hello!
Hello, Melli!
Schönen guten Tag!
Hi, hi!
Hi! Kochst du jetzt?
Wenn du soweit bist.
Ich bin total soweit. Ich will nämlich wissen, was du da jetzt machst. Ich habe nämlich Hunger.
Jetzt schon?
Ja.
Na gut. Also du weißt ja, beim Local Listener gibt es immer einen Snack.
Ja.
Normalerweise. Ja. Der dann in der Pause praktisch gereicht wird. Und da wir jetzt ja digital sind, können wir schlecht was reichen. Deswegen hat sich der Gregor überlegt, von wegen, wir schicken den Leuten, beziehungsweise wir liefern den Leuten die Zutaten für einen Snack.
Das heißt, das heißt, die kriegen das jetzt, wer bringt das, du oder was?
Das bringt dann ich, genau.
Okay.
Also ich fahre bei den Leuten vorbei, die es bestellt haben und liefere denen dann so eine kleine Tüte. Und da sind die ganzen Zutaten drin für den Snack. Und zwar es gibt nämlich gebratene Udon-Nudeln mit einer Satay-Soße.
Hast du die gemacht? Oder?
Die Satay-Soße habe ich schon vorbereitet. Genau, die habe ich gemacht. Und jetzt fangen wir dann an, das Ganze mal zu kochen. Ja. Kurze Info, nicht, dass ihr euch wundert, also wenn ihr es bekommt, bitte nochmal waschen. Auch den Paprika. Der Koriander ist im günstigen, ist eigentlich von mir dann schon gewaschen, wenn es in der Tüte drin ist, aber der Paprika und die Frühlingszwiebel kurz waschen. Da schnippeln wir das Weiße in relativ feine. Und wenn es dann weiter hinter geht, können wir grober werden.
Kann man das ganze Grüne eigentlich reintun?
Ja.
Also wenn ich jetzt nicht hier wäre, würde ich das jetzt auch cool hinkriegen.
Ja.
Zeitgleich.
Man muss jetzt keine super Kochfähigkeiten haben. Das kriegt eigentlich jeder irgendwie hin, finde ich.
Ja, also da würde ich sagen, ich schaffe das auch. Wenn ich es schaffe, müsste das fast jeder auch schaffen.
Öl habe ich jetzt nicht mit. Ich gehe mal da ganz krass davon aus, dass ihr alle zu Hause Öl habt. Ich benutze jetzt Sesamöl. Ihr könnt aber auch einfach Erdnussöl oder Sonnenblumenöl oder Rapsöl nehmen. Das ist, auch wenn ich ja jetzt sage, da ist Fischsoße, das ganze Gericht ist vegan. Das heißt, es ist keine Fischsoße, sondern eine vegetarische Fischsoße. Das ist eigentlich ein Widerspruch in sich, ich weiß. Aber,
also es schmeckt nach Fisch, ist aber kein Fisch mit anderen Worten.
Ja, es ist so ein bisschen auf der Basis eben mit Algen und Soja und.
Aber kein echter Fisch.
Kein echter Fisch. So, und jetzt packt man noch das Gemüse mit rein. Das kann man auch früher machen. Also man kann es auch als erstes mit dem Knoblauch und den Ingwer anschwitzen. Ich mache das aber lieber so zum Schluss rein, dann hat es noch ein bisschen mehr Biss.
Ja.
Wem das Ganze auch zu trocken ist, wer es lieber ein bisschen noch ein bisschen flüssiger haben möchte, der kann sich da auch noch ein bisschen Wasser dazu machen. Aber wir machen das jetzt mal nicht. Wir machen das immer so. Wir machen das so, wie ich das jetzt mag.
Vielleicht.
Das wäre vielleicht eine Idee. Also Aufforderung an alle, die ihr das kocht, filmt es oder macht ein Foto und schickt es uns.
Ja, das finde ich cool.
Das fände ich dann eine schöne, dann können wir das nochmal mit einbinden irgendwie.
Ob es genauso aussieht. Oder
genau. Oder um Gottes
Willen
war das
anders
schlimm.
aussieht. Ja, eben, weiß ja nicht.
Jetzt kommt noch Sesam und geröstete Erdnüsse. Da kann man entweder alles oder...
So viel?
Ja. Ich mag das so.
Ja, also Sesam ist eh gut.
So this is the cellar of Libertine Lindenberg. You will find the recording room of Lotte Lindenberg. Look, this is Lotte. May I introduce? That's a funny story about her.
She dressed up for us.
She dressed up for us, yeah. Well, it's a funny story you can read on the website of Lotte Lindenberg. To be shortened, it's her name is Lotte Lindenberg. She was married to a Mr. Lindenberg, and she had a sister called Libertine.
Okay.
And well, her husband had an amoureuse fou with her sister, and so she went away from Frankfurt, Germany, went to Paris to become a model, to go to the US, to Los Angeles, but came back to Frankfurt when her former husband, died, and she opened up this hotel with her sister together.
With her sister?
Yeah, it's not the true story, but it's a funny thing to know. So we are in the spirit of Lotte right now. So you've brought some music.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah. I brought a piece by Chick Corea.
Okay.
And it's called Children's Song, number 6. It's one out of 20 that he wrote and recorded in 1984 already. And actually, all these children's songs I find really, really beautiful. And they remind me a little bit of other composers I like Debussy, Satie, Scriabin. I hear different influences, but of course they're more jazzy. And this children's song number 6 I find really beautiful. It's melancholic and sounds simple. It's not so simple. And when you offered that we meet and play something together, I thought this is something that would be easier to put this together with double bass and piano than, let's say, a Beethoven sonata.
For sure. For me, for sure.
Yeah, so that was the idea, to bring this piece.
You've already been recording this tune for your family album, right?
Yeah, precisely. First, because I like the piece so much, and second, because it's called Children's Song. It fit really well with the concept of songs for our daughter. So we recorded it on the Family Songbook album.
So let's play the duet version now.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
Very nice.
Thank you, Gregor.
Thank you very much.
I like how it sounds with a bass in addition.
Yeah, yeah.
Should be like this.
Yeah, it's very simple, but it has a strong warmth that comes from underneath. Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, you play on this very simple instrument, but you seem to try to find the right touch of an instrument when you play it, right?
Yeah, I have. To say an image is funny because image is connected with vision, but I have the image in my ear of the sound I'm looking for. And then I have the result of what comes from the instrument, and I just kind of find my way. I know something is possible with this piano, and I'm just trying to see balance between my hands and the speed of my attack and all sorts of other piano player parameters to try and find the sound that I'm looking for in my ear.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
There's another piece that you've been choosing. I will say, I asked you to play it from a project that you've been working on that I really like a lot, which is called Bach Space.
Thank
we haven't
you.
talked about it, right?
Right.
Since,
actually, you chose it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A very, very nice program of a trio you formed together with a violin player and a sound engineer, which is very special.
Yeah.
Both from Switzerland. Tomek
Kolczynski
yes.
is a sound design and composer of electronic music, and Etienne Abelin is a classical violin player, also conductor now. And I used to be a student in Basel. That's how I met Etienne and later Tomek. And our wish was to perform music of Bach, but not necessarily in the concert hall in this very confined, strict setup that classical concerts provide, but really to open it up. And so we worked for many, many, many years. We had lots of discussions and arguments and rehearsals and weekends together with talking and trying to arrive at this concept, which is to find unity between the untouched Bach version that we record and the new music by Tomek. So all the electronic sounds that he uses are actually synthesis of the violin and piano sounds that we played. We recorded it, then he turned it into beats and drones and all the electro sounds. And all the new music that he composes comes from motifs that are already in the pieces by Bach. So we present Bach original, and then the transition usually takes some kind of loop, and then slowly the beat comes in, and then it turns into something else, but the something else is not completely unconnected. It's always made and looks back onto the original, and then it goes back to Bach. So that was the idea.
So today we're going to perform the last song of that album.
Yeah, it's called Constellation, number 999. The name comes from two reasons. It's based on a prelude for lute originally by Bach. The work number is 999. And Constellation simply because there are so many different elements that come together and create this kind of unity in its own. So what we will do is I start with the prelude. Yes. I play the whole thing as Bach more or less wrote it. I don't change notes anyway. And then when I get to the end, I go into a loop. And then you join me with some beats, and you loop the beats with your looper. And then you come in with a part from a violin sonata by Bach. Not my notes and not yours, but Bach composed them. You play them on the bass. You loop them. You add another voice also from the violin sonata. It was never meant to be played with the prelude together, but it works nicely. You loop it, and then we just go into the loop, we have our beats, and it grows, and then we come back to the prelude.
We try to get to space.
Yes, I
space
hope so.
Bach.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's try.
All right.
Hello? Are you finished?
Yes.
Lunchtime.
Great.
Let's go upstairs, okay?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Hello, here we are.
Hey!
This is the kitchen. Come in.
Hello.
And this is Jörg.
Hallo!
Hallo.
Da seid ihr endlich.
Ja.
Ich dachte schon,
Wow.
Wie schön.
es dauert noch länger. Es gibt gebratene Udon-Nudeln mit Satay-Sauce und Gemüse.
Ich durfte schon probieren.
Ja, du Glückliche.
Ja.
Okay.
Große Portion?
Extra
Hunger?
groß.
You want to take a seat?
Ja,
Just
danke.
sit there. I will take the long walk.
Yeah.
Ding, ding, ding.
I'm so.
Hungry, hungry.
Wow.
Sieht so gut aus, oder?
Ja.
Ich hoffe.
Ja, schmeckt gut.
Ich bin jetzt mal gespannt, ob alle mitessen, die das auch bekommen haben,
Ja,
das Essen.
genau. Ich hoffe, es haben alle verstanden, wie es geht.
Ich hoffe, es ist auch bei allen so
Also
geworden.
das hätte sogar ich geschafft. Also ich war ja anwesend hier.
Sehr gut. Tamar, do you often cook at home?
Yes. Yes. Anyway, yes. Now in Corona times, even more.
Yes.
And since about a year, we observe the Shabbat.
Oh.
No, that's not actually true. We don't observe Shabbat, but we follow the Jewish tradition of making a Friday dinner. So every Friday evening, we invite friends. We have a big table. Everybody dresses nicely. I cook a lot, or we cook, my husband too. And we make the blessing for the candles and the wine and the food.
Do you have these candles? These.
No, we have two silver candle holders. Yeah.
This Jewish candle.
Yeah, I don't have that.
Okay.
Yeah. So since it's a year, and I do it mostly for my daughter to have the family together. So every Friday I cook a lot.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So now it's time to
Yes.
to try it.
Thank you. Thank
So
you,
this
Jörg.
Jörg, this is komplett vegan.
Ja,
Alles klar.
it's completely vegan. With vegan fish sauce.
This one is very interesting. Fish sauce without fish. It's just fish flavor
Amazing.
Blender.
You want something to drink?
Some water, please. Do you cook?
I cook whenever I can. This is the moment where I can rest the most, I believe. If I go to the kitchen and after a day of work, going to kitchen and cook is like relaxing. I can listen to music. You also listen to music while cooking?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. So you understand perfectly what I'm saying. What a pleasure.
It is.
So,
Thank you.
ich glaube, das ist schon der Punkt, an dem wir uns gerne verabschieden wollen. Es ist wunderbar. Tamar Halperin, thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Eine wichtige Information gibt es. Tamar wird mit ihrem Mann ab dem 20. Juni, oder am 20. Juni muss ich genau sagen, ein Konzert geben. You want to tell something about the concert shortly?
Yes, we will give a concert from our home, from the studio, plus some bits from the village where we are. Andreas will sing some Gregorian chant in his church, and we will host one of the winemakers of our region for wine tasting, and we play some Bach and Vivaldi and some pieces from our latest album. So this is June 20th.
And this will be possible on YouTube?
I don't know yet.
You don't know yet?
But it will be announced
Okay,
one way or another.
gut.
Yeah.
Also, bleibt dran, guckt, wo Tamar Halperin und Andreas Scholl zu sehen sein werden. Ich freue mich, dass ihr alle dabei wart bei diesem Local Listener on the Road, dem ersten seiner Art. Ich danke Jörg Wegner fürs Essen machen, Melli dafür, dass du als mein Sidekick heute das erste Mal mit dabei warst. Ich danke Matthias Hund für die Kamera und Tamar Halperin. Thanks again for coming and thank you for the music. It was wonderful to play with you.
Thank you, likewise.
Enjoy your meal and
Thank you very
hope
much.
to see you again on stage.
Me too.
Without recipes, I'm lost. There's some things I can do. This is what I can.